Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
Welcome back to the Gay Buddhist Fellowship. Before we hear from our speaker, we will do introductions. Just by a show of hands, is there anyone here for the first time or after a long absence? Great. We'll try and remember your names as we go around. Make you feel welcome. My name is Tom.
I'm Amos. Fabrizio. Ian.
David.
Philip.
Robert.
Jose. I'm David.
Jess.
Mike.
I'm Ray.
Larry.
Michael.
My name is Jerry.
I'm Trenton.
I'm Jim.
I'm Jack.
Michael.
I'm Bob.
I'm David.
I'm Tony.
I'm Paige.
Lee Robbins. I'm Hal.
I'm Clint.
Sergey. Sorry. Richard. Joe.
Great. We will try and remember Fabrizio and Sergey as we meet for our social period afterwards. So our speaker today is Suvanna Cullen, who is has long been associated with the San Francisco Buddhist Center, where we are today. Actually ran it for quite some time and still resides upstairs. Her talk today will be on the topic of funny how in the light of death everything shines. Suvanna, welcome.
Thank you. That's a line from a poem by Rick Fields that I was very struck by. How many of you were here the last time, or recollect if you were here the last time I was here speaking? Okay. God, I have to confess, I wrote a talk. That's not my confession. Just not really sure what to say all of a sudden, but I guess I'll just proceed and see what happens. The last time I was here, I talked about having cancer. So I have and had, I think it was about maybe 6 or 7 months ago, advanced stage cancer. And at that time, I was at a particular phase, as one is, always. So this might be, well, it's a similar topic, but anyway, I'm a bit further down the line now. And I feel like my point of view has changed a bit, but we will see. And I'm aware that when you're involved with with cancer or maybe any other kind of advanced disease type thing, you end up having a very kind of almost technical, kind of anatomically based relationship, but it can get into that, having that kind of a relationship to one's own body, because most of what I know about what I have, I see in pictures. I do not directly experience. And what those pictures show is that I pretty much have cancer all over my body. Which often isn't sad, but is somehow sad right now. But I also have a direct, just without the technology, without the pictures, without the doctors and all the details that are often filling my head, I have a direct experience of my body also, which is that I feel very good a lot of the time. I don't really have any symptoms. So I'm in this kind of strange position of not feeling really sick. I have a little bit of congestion in my lungs, but other than that, I feel good, and I feel quite happy and at peace with myself. Except on occasions when I'm giving a talk about it, possibly, and or rather thinking about giving a talk about it, or in the other odd situations. So really, I just have a few reflections on how this has been for me, which I hope has some relevance to your experience also. It seems like what happens when you're, faced with mortality in the way that I have been, and I'm sure there are many other ways to have that happen. It seemed to me lately like all the little kind of strings or something that kind of binds me to situations or people or things. Just a lot of space has opened up around that. And I feel like it seems like lately, sometimes, I think I might have mentioned this last time, but I'm sure I remember my talk last time much better than anybody here does. You even remember it at all, but I feel like some people say, I have a hangnail, I'm sure that's not a big deal to you, I can't talk to you about that or whatever, I got a cold. Thinking that I was going to be like, your problems are nothing compared to mine, whatever. Which is a completely understandable assumption to make, but I think actually the opposite is true. And it seems like, especially lately, I feel like I actually feel other people's pain more than I used to. And not the kind of pain, well, maybe just sadness about something or just ordinary pain, but really more the kind of pain that's really more like Let me see what I put on here. I said, I'm describing it as a pain, but what it feels to me like is it would be just as accurate to call it madness. And I think it just comes down to this kind of intense emotional, I don't even know what the word is, like involvement, engagement, or entanglement with, with inanimate objects, with ideas, with things that are, from a certain point of view, outside of ourselves. And I feel like I feel it in myself, and I feel like I feel it very strongly in other people. Probably what would traditionally in Buddhism be called grasping. But it just feels, or it could be anxiety, or it could be anything, this kind of ebb of like, I need something, and this sense of kind of lack that we have, and all kinds of things, anger and worry. And it's not to make those things sound like something you're trying to get rid of and that kind of thing. It's more just, it's just feeling how that feels. And I feel it very strongly in myself and other people. And I think partly because part of that is tied up with, having a future that you expect to happen, and having plans, and having something maybe to protect, or something that's going to kind of unfold in the future. And I think when you don't have that as much, or that's not as solid, that part is just a bit shaky, it maybe becomes a bit clearer, the pain that can be in that. Does that make any sense? It does.
It's like a poem.
Thank you. And I feel like these things kind of like pull us out of ourselves. And I was reminded of this quote by Shunryu Suzuki, who says, usually when somebody believes in a particular religion, his attitude becomes more and more a sharp angle pointing away from himself. In our way, the point of the angle is always toward ourselves. But then I was thinking, for some reason, why do we need this angle to point toward ourselves? And the reason is because we're always like a jack in the box, like kind of jumping out. And I feel like the jumping out, it's not something that we decide to do. It's not a story that we say, oh, this is who I am, this is what it is. It is kind of like a story, but it's like a story in our guts that we need something, and that everything's not okay the way it is, and all the kind of ways we try to set that up to make it work. And I wonder, when we talk about attachment in Buddhism, I wonder if that's just what it is. This impulse to assign aspects of our own mind to things things that we think we need, things that we think we want. And emotions and ideas that we have about ourselves. I feel like for me, things are becoming more spacious around all of those patterns and habits that I have. And I feel how huge everything is, and how much space around all those things there can be. And it's really it really feels incredibly liberating. And it's the most, again, in Buddhism, it's a completely basic sort of thing. You're aware that's going on, you have these impulses. I guess I feel like something's switched for me into that I'm not trying as much as I used to. But I feel a very strong connection to space, and can I even say what that is? Probably not. And I also feel more deeply connected to people than I ever have before. Although, and somehow I can have space around that too, because it is incredibly painful. Feeling like I'm sort of divorcing everybody, sort of how I feel. Someday. As we all will. I'm kind of into Rick Fields lately. He wrote this. He wrote a book of poetry that somebody introduced me the other day. That's it's called "Fuck You, Cancer," and I thought that was a good title. So this is a quote from an interview with him in Utne magazine. He died of lung cancer. Shortly after I was diagnosed, Allen Ginsberg called and reminded me of something that Trungpa had said. Somebody who's having a liver transplant. He said, "You will live or you will die. Both are good. I don't want to make my death into the enemy. Death is not the enemy. It is part of our life. Cancer can be seen as the enemy at different stages, but death itself, however it comes or whenever it comes, is not the enemy. That's something to be embraced." So I'm especially interested in this line, "You will live or you will die. Both are good." And I was thinking, how can anybody make sense of that? And I was also thinking, what could be more un-American? I guess I feel like my body is finding its way out of this world. And it feels like I'm not angry about it. It feels natural, and there are a lot of things that are natural, or could be called natural, that I'm not in favor of. But I think when we talk about, fairness or wrongness and things like that, I think it can be just another way of kind of jumping out of ourselves, because it's always been like this. Babies 10 minutes old die, and people live 100 years, and nobody knows when anything's going to happen, and it's just always been like that. Which maybe doesn't make it any easier to accept. But it is the way it is. And I think these basic facts, can make us sick with worry, or they can really help us to embrace human experience, which is radiant and magic. And I was expecting, or I was thinking that this talk would be much more chipper than it's turning out to be. The fact is that I feel that what I have learned in the last year and a half has been an incredible gift. I have more I don't have more, I have a very deep sense of compassion and presence and love that I was not in touch with before as much. And and who knows what's going to happen? I don't know what's going to happen. It doesn't look promising for me in terms of having a long life. But I'm actually able to embrace my life much more than I was before. Oh dear, that part wasn't very chipper either, was it? Let's see what else we have on here. Yeah, and just to say what I was saying about, feeling these kind of tides in everyone, about being wrapped up in things. I think there's always a risk when you talk about stuff like that it sounds like you're saying these things are trouble, don't do them, causes you pain. But actually, all those things are also part of the radiance of human experience, and one of the gifts that Buddhist practice gives us is that we don't have to, if we have a tendency to beat ourselves up in other contexts, we can bring that into Buddhism if we want to. As somebody once said, your madness will follow you into the spiritual life. But if we can get a bit behind that and see that all those things, all those impulses that we have, all those needs that we have, all the things that we jump out of ourselves with and attribute to other people, our anger, our suffering, craving of whatever kind, are also a key to living in a more sane, fully embodied, happy way. And I'm very interested in this. I've been very interested lately in, letting go, the idea of letting go. Because I feel like it's the same as, it sounds like you're saying, okay, I'm letting all this stuff go. I'm kind of an independent entity of some kind or whatever it is. But I think really completely letting go is really letting go of what we're carrying that is making us suffer unnecessarily. And the result of that is really an actual true embrace of what is. So somehow I think that it's the same, that if we can approach life, our experience, as much as we can, without worrying about protecting ourselves, or maybe having like a partial embrace and part of it is off somewhere else in some past experience, or a part embrace and partly wanting something in return, or whatever all the dynamics that go into that are. There's some mixture of letting go of things, letting go of people, and completely being with and embracing things and people that I think is the same thing. I love the line by Wallace Stevens who says, the way through the world is more difficult to find than the way beyond it. I think that's pretty much all I can come up with at this point. I would be very interested in any comments or anything that you all might have to say. Yes, please.
I get a sense that your present experiences with those that you're close to, that they're richer and deeper. And I'm just curious, since you know that maybe your life is maybe a little shorter,
Mm-hmm.
have you been able to have connections where you get to say goodbye to people? Or I'm curious how that is for you.
I had a friend just come from London who was here for a couple weeks. And I figured it was going to be the last time I saw him. It was very interesting because I was, even though I thought it would probably be the last time I saw him, we had a wonderful time together. And I thought, how do you say goodbye forever to someone? First of all, I'm not totally sure that it's the last time I'm going to see him, although it seems very likely. I guess I feel like there's a lot of expression of love that goes on, but I don't feel like I can really... Sorry, I'm kind of thinking as I'm talking to you, but I kind of feel like I've thought, oh, there's some final moment, but I haven't gotten to that final moment. So I just feel like being present with people and expressing love or whatever is there is really what I want to do. I start to get into trouble if I'm like sort of trying to be profound, you know, like, oh, this is what's going to happen. And, yeah, it just doesn't go anywhere. It's a little bit simpler than I thought it would be. And it's also partly because, I'm just not very sick right now. So, you know, when I do get very sick, which presumably I will, I might feel differently about it then. But I do feel like I am really enjoying people.
Maybe that's the long goodbye. You don't have to formalize it. It's just felt.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not clear what spiritual path you follow. I mean, this is a Buddhist group, but this doesn't mean that you are a Buddhist yourself. And I wonder if you want to share what path you are following and how your Sangha community, your spiritual community are supporting you, and what are using the teachings of your paths to help you through this process.
Mm-hmm. I've lived in this building for about 20 years.
Oh, I'm sorry, of course.
And, yeah, no,
I forgot the introduction.
yeah, no, that's all right.
Stupidly.
And I feel incredibly, and also we have a wider community too, many people in England and all over the world.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's been, it's been a wonderful experience. Again, it's just like all the love that comes out. And it's funny, I remember thinking when I thought that I might be sort of done with cancerish things, possibly, I remember thinking, man, I'm going to remember to just express love, like whenever I feel it. You don't have to wait until you have some terrible illness. You can just tell people all the time that you appreciate them, whatever it is. I'm sure that I pretty much forgot about that when I had no health problems for around 2 months. But yeah, there's a lot of love. I have, people offering to help me a lot. It's been a wonderful experience. But in terms of special teachings or whatever, I think I think it's just, it's very simple. I think I just want to be present, and I feel like I have a lot more capacity for that. And I want to, presence, compassion, love. I also, not all the time, I can't say all the time, but I think I have basically completely, let's say 92%, that I have just accepted my situation. And I'm just trying to be with it as it is. And I'm trying to kind of navigate other people's kind of pain about it. which I feel very strongly. But I think just like in myself, it's okay. I don't know if that answers your question. First you, and then you.
Do you think that by making the most of your everyday life and just enjoying every moment of it will give you more strength to fight this thing? I don't know how what's the clinical picture exactly, but so do you think that this will give you strength to just move on and just fight this fucking cancer?
I don't really, it's funny. It's funny, I was just listening to this lecture about the English language, and she was talking about war language that is used for fighting. We even say fighting illness, and I really don't think of myself as fighting illness. I think that although I do what I can, and I look after myself very well, but I think it probably does give me strength, and I think I'm just very interested in my mental attitude, and I work with it a lot. There was something else you said. So I have, in terms of what my actual situation is, I have metastases, about 15 bits in my brain, about 20 in my chest, more developed, and then my spine, my hip bones, my liver. I could go on. So it's probably like about 50 parts in my body. And I feel good. Yeah, you and then you.
So first I want to thank you for your kindness in sharing yourself with us. And it all rang very true for me. And the simplest summary, I think, in Buddhist terms is, this moment is like this. And in this moment, there is no death or cancer in the future, and there's no achievement in the past.
Yeah.
It's all just little chemical neurotransmitters that are floating about. And it also struck me directly from Buddhism, as you were having some tears, that if I'm sad, I'm just sad.
Yeah.
It isn't terrible. It isn't wonderful. It's just, there you are.
Yeah.
And I'm finding if one is fortunate enough to have lived through things or a long time, that one or I may have some experiences of this from colon cancer 3 years ago, which in my case it seems like I'm probably recovered from my 74th birthday 3 weeks ago, which I will not recover from.
No one does.
And I guess it's useful to plan about the future so that as the next moments come up, maybe one will be more content with them. But it's still, this is all there is. It's just here.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's so... That's so big, what you just said. It's, I guess what we need to do is just keep reminding ourselves of that, because it's so easy to forget.
Yes, I would just add, for some time after the colon cancer operation, which was pretty benign, it wasn't any worse than an appendicitis, I would notice the colors and the leaves on the trees and people around me, and then, as in another place, they talk about very young children having contact with God and then they forgot.
Yeah.
And so I would forget a lot of the time, and now it's sort of reemerged a bit.
Yeah. Nice. Thank you.
So you spoke about the only awareness you have of the cancer is, the images you're shown and things like that, and all through the wonders of modern science. And it struck me that eons ago, decades ago, the time of the Buddha, nobody was told these things. So you would just have no sensation.
Yeah. I would just have a little cough.
Yeah, a little cough or whatever.
Yeah.
And you think nothing of it and live your life normally.
Yeah.
And then get suddenly overcome and die.
Right. Yeah.
Nobody was told you have 6 months.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
like this.
Yeah.
And yet you've described this really rich experience that comes from, one could say, well, that just scares the dickens out of people unnecessarily.
Yeah.
But you're describing there's this richness that has come from that.
Mm.
And I'm not sure what my question is.
Yeah.
But
What's an interesting point,
I'd
though?
really like to
Yeah.
hear your thoughts on that. It's like,
Yeah.
which not which is better or worse or preferable
Yeah.
or not, but how do you?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on it?
I feel like, so I was diagnosed about a year and a half ago. It was in December of 2011. And I feel really grateful that I've had that whole time I'm just looking at these pictures going, what? Like, actually, I haven't seen the brain ones. I'm sure I'd be very tripping out on those. That was actually about a week ago that I found that out. With everybody telling me, you have no symptoms, this is just a precautionary thing, whatever. But I feel like over that time, I'm really glad. I'm glad that I know, actually. It would be if I just started getting more sick, and there would be time then too, but I kind of feel like I've had time to, I wouldn't even say prepare. It's just whatever the transformations are, whatever the space is that comes in, whatever it is that can really tell you in your heart that life is just incredibly precious. We all have moments of that anyway, but I've had a lot of that. And I've had a chance to, interact with people in a really different way. And just, it's been incredibly inspiring and useful to be able to know that to whatever degree I know anything. At the same time, Western medicine, traditional medicine, is so, dare I say, sort of not spiritual or something. Like it's very like, here's your body, here's your scan, here's all these bits. We'll shoot you up with contrast and stick you in this tube and whatever. And it's kind of it's very alienating in a way. I think if I were just doing that, I would be having a very different experience. I also go to acupuncture and I do complementary things as well. And I feel like those things and the connection with my friends and just my life kind of balance something that actually seems extremely imbalanced to me in terms of what the regular medicine is focusing on. Whatever, that's just its job. Its job isn't to do the other things. So I feel both grateful to know, but I also feel glad that that's just not my only orientation. Because most of the time, sometimes I'm just walking around, my head is just jam-packed with names of chemotherapy and stuff like that. And it's not a good way to live, just like thinking about medical options all the time and stuff like that. I did, this is a slightly different topic, but I used to say, well, how long do I have to live? And, and actually, you hear about that all the time. Doctors say, 6 months, 50 years, whatever. But they never want to answer me. And I can totally see why, because they're pretty much always wrong because nobody has any idea. So I don't ask anymore. And they don't offer, and I think it's better that way. Yeah. Yeah, you and then you.
So I'm curious about, it sounds very systemic. So with things like chemotherapy, sometimes I see, I've never had the personal experience, but I've seen that people engage in that chemotherapy and it really impacts their quality of life versus not. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, God, I'm really glad you asked that question actually, because when I really don't have much, if any, fear of death, but I do have a fear of chemotherapy wrecking my body and dying that way. And I actually told my doctor that the other day. We were talking just about the brain situation. And I just told her, I said, this is what I'm afraid of. And she totally got it. I'm sure all doctors wouldn't be like that. She totally got it. She said, oh, here, we'll do this kind. It's kind of really, let's just see if it works. In the meantime, now because they discovered the brain things, I actually have to do radiation before I could even do that, because this is serious. So I'm kind of light on the medical interventions. I have done chemotherapy, and if things hash out, I would try it. And so we agreed that we would wait 6 weeks and just see if it was doing anything. And if it wasn't, I could switch to something else, or I could stop anytime. So I'm kind of super tentative about the going on with that kind of stuff. Because I kind of feel like, I feel good now. So it's very hard to start kind of trying to get into those kinds of treatments that are going to be really difficult. But sometimes they're not, and I responded really well to it last time in terms of not having really horrible side effects, and that's also partly because of acupuncture and stuff too. So, I want to go very light on that kind of stuff, and I think everybody that I know understands that. So I think that's an important part of my system. Thank you.
I think that's...
I just was also really wanted to thank you for your comments. I think they're, obviously for different ones of this for different reasons, they resonate in very meaningful ways. But something that really occurred to me was that there's probably nobody in this room, not just this room, in the world, that doesn't struggle with pain and how one deals with that. And we've all had the experience of overcoming that pain and realizing the power it has to transform us as people. And something, I recently retired, and I think retirement is sort of in a way sort of metaphorical, finding out you have cancer, you're going to die.
Right.
And you
a lot of things are. Yeah. A lot of things are metaphorical, you're going to die.
And something I've really been thinking about a lot is that, all these lessons that I've learned about being able to overcome pain, is that going to do me any good? Is it going to get me there? Am that facing a new pain, if you will, a new fear, is just as real as all the other fears were in the past that seem almost insignificant or meaningless. For instance, dealing with sexual orientation, thinking of that 13-year-old child dealing with that, I look back and I think, I almost can't even connect to that person anymore. I can't. I don't know what that feels like any longer. I'm way past that. I love that experience that I went through, but the one in front, am I going to have the same ability to open myself up and say, sure, come on.
Well, it sounds like you've benefited from the transformative facing of whatever you were facing in the past. And
I think most of us here have.
Yes.
That's the reason why we're here.
Yeah. And all you can really say is, may it continue.
Well, thank you, because you've given sort of courageous insight in the process.
Thank you. Thank you all very much.
Suvanna, thank you for allowing us to view the world through your experience in your eyes. We're very grateful for that.
Your chipper rose-colored glasses.
That's right. It was a bit more chipper last time, but what can I do?
Well, last time, at one point during the talk, I said, nothing you see before you is real. And now it's very real. So, that's right. Thank you. Do we have announcements?
I just want to remind everybody we have an Encounter Community Thrift 670 Valencia Street. In the last quarter, we made close to $400, so keep those donations coming. Check on the website to see, because they don't take everything you might, but it's a great way to support the Sangha.
Clint?
Yeah, one outside project that GBF does is there's a homeless shelter for young people called the Larkin Street Youth Center. And once a month, the third Saturday of the month, we provide, we go to the kitchen, we prepare the menu, buy the food, and we cook the food right there. And kids are very receptive and very grateful, and it's a really rewarding experience. I'm currently heading that project, and I would like to open it up for other people to volunteer. It is not a huge commitment, but it is something that I think the people who are doing it right now get a lot of pleasure out of it. So if you're interested in participating in this, please contact me outside, and I'll get your contact information.
I have
Yes.
well, in case anyone is interested, there's a teacher, Mipan, Saken Mipan Rinpoche, who's coming to the Bay Area doing a weekend program. I believe it's the second weekend in May. So it's, I'm not sure, I don't have the calendar, but I guess 10, 11, 12. So that could be looked up on the internet. Saken Mipan Rinpoche Saken.
Where is that going to be?
It's going to be at Point Richmond. And I can tell you, probably more details if we talk outside. But Saken is spelled Sakyong. If you wanted to Google it. Bay Area visit.
Lee?
I just wanted to share, this has been an extraordinary weekend for me between your talk and because yesterday the Marsh Theater, which is around the corner on 1070 Valencia, has a show about Ram Dass. And those of you who are in your 60s and 70s will particularly relate to that, but others also. And for those who don't know, he started out at Harvard as Richard Alpert, became Ram Dass, and was in some ways the leader of the psychedelic movement and revolution. And you may know him in terms of Be Here Now and there are books that came out. And it's a one-person 90-minute show, and it's quite extraordinary in both the writing and the acting and the experience in the small theater. It really feels like it's him. And there's a lot of pieces about death in it. He has now passed away, and about Alzheimer's for his father. And yet it's also very upbeat. I think in his life was, I think, as exemplary as lives can be. So I just recommend it strongly. It's around till May 18th. It's pretty cheap as well. The Marsh Theater. It's on Valencia, I think, between 1070, I think it's between 22nd and 21st. So
it's just right there.
Yeah. You could go through the buildings, you'd be right.
Yeah, if you could go through the buildings, you'd be in the marsh.
Thank you. Yes?
Yes, next week, I believe our speaker is Neil Borland, who's always inspiring and lucid and a wonderful presence. There's also Cinco de Mayo, so you might want to get a little earlier. In terms of, is it Carnival? Yeah. But it's also the 5th of May, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's going to be talking about death too, isn't he?
Well, that's his sort of thing.
That's his his pep
You
talk.
guys are getting a lot of death.
It's always chipper.
It's important.
Well, I can guarantee chipperness. At a workshop that I'm going to be co-leading on May 11th, and I have flyers for it, colorful flyers this week. It's called Lightening Up About Growing Older, and we're going to be using meditation, laughter yoga, authentic movement, journaling, dance, and from the feedback we got from the workshop we did in February, it's been very valuable for folks in terms of opening up some new ways of thinking about growing older and aging, either our own processes or people that we know and love. So I'm happy to talk with you about it outside.
Thank you. Let us gather in a circle for the dedication merit.
Old bones.
Are we beginning the host bit?
Oh, yes, the host bit.
Hey, I'm your host. There's some cookies and stuffed dates for you to enjoy. And there's hot water for tea. If you do have tea, please wash your cup off in the hot soapy water and rinse it and put it in the drain board. On the credenza, there's a sign-up sheet if you'd like to get our email, get our newsletter. And let's see, some people go out to eat for lunch. They usually meet by the door. You might consider inviting someone.
And throw money in the bowl.
Oh yeah, and I'm going to be coming out with the dollar bowl. And I think the suggested donation is $5 to $8. So just whatever you care to give would be much appreciated.
Wonderful. Suvanna, would you lead us?
May the merit gained in my acting thus go to the alleviation of the suffering of all beings. My personality throughout my existences, my possessions, and my merit I give up without regard to myself for the benefit of all beings. Just as the earth and other elements are serviceable in many ways to the infinite number of beings inhabiting limitless space, so may I become that which maintains all beings situated throughout space, so long as all have not attained to peace.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.